Why Veganism Failed by Levi Hildebrand. A patron sent me this. I'm not loving the title. I feel like there was another Veganism Failed video not too long ago, and it wasn't even about veganism failing. Am I making that up? Anyway, let's check it out.
Only a few short years ago, the vegan movement was at an all-time high. Every fast food chain across the country was launching their very own plant-based meats. Vegan influencers were garnering a huge number of views online, and there really seemed to be a shift in the broader cultural landscape towards a more plant-based diet. But today, we are seeing the pendulum swing in the opposite direction. The carnivore diet, which was really not a thing before, is the latest food phenomenon. Plant-based options are getting canceled, flagship meat companies are struggling, and the social landscape of veganism has fallen off of a cliff.
What does that mean, the social landscape of veganism has fallen off of a cliff? What does that mean? The social landscape, does it mean like social media? Like it's not as popular or seemingly not as popular on social media anymore? Like it's true, if you look at Google Trends and compare, well, look, I just made a video about this a few months ago talking about like the vegan hype and what happened. And yes, if you compare 2025, 2024 to 2019, 2020, yeah, it looks pretty bad. It looks like all of these companies are failing, all of these plant-based sales that didn't materialize, all of these YouTubers who don't get the views they got, including me, or are no longer vegan. But if you look at 2025 compared to 2010, there's a huge improvement. Like veganism is absolutely more well-known and more popular today. And also, if you go to the grocery store, even though we've had all of these, brands doing poorly, removing lines, or even going bankrupt, right? Ceasing to exist. Brave Robot. No, that hazelnut. Yes, it gave me butt acne, but it was worth it. I miss it so much. I love that you all know I get butt acne from dairy. Fun little fact. Even still, Breyers has a non-dairy ice cream. In 2010, I could not have imagined Breyers, one of the largest ice cream brands in the United States, having a oat milk vanilla ice cream. Vanilla and cookies and cream, and I think chocolate. I think those are the three they have now. They got rid of the mint, which is very sad. Ben & Jerry's has 20-something flavors. I think there are 5 in my store. Reese's Cups. That's a huge difference from a decade ago. Go back to just 2017. It's a huge difference. Things have definitely changed. So yeah, it's like anything else, right? You can make the case for climate change not being real if you just look at a tiny bit of time, right? But that doesn't make sense. That's very skewed, and you're creating a false narrative when you do that. Also, when we look at plant-based sales, pretty much everyone is still expecting plant-based sales to continue overall, right? We're not focused on Beyond Meat or just one specific company, because who cares? I mean, vegan companies, I want them to succeed, but it's not about the companies, right? It's about veganism. It's about plant-based on the whole being successful. And all of the estimates are that plant-based sales are going to continue to go up. And I just read, I think it was a UK brand. Was it Tesco or something? Tesco? That doesn't sound right. Gosh darn it. I don't know what it was, but they had forecast their plant-based line, which is huge. They have a bunch of different affordable vegan products. They had expected it to increase by 400% or something. It's increased by 600%. And yet people like this don't talk about that. And it's not because I think he's ignoring it. I don't think he even knows about it, because why would he? He doesn't really care about veganism. He's not up to date on what's going on in the vegan activism world, in the vegan plant-based product world. And if you're not, then yeah, it just looks like, oh, veganism was this fad. Plant-based eating was this fad and it's dying now, and now everything's carnivore diet. Really? no one actually eats a carnivore diet except for like 2 people for like a month. It seems really big because people get views because it's so asinine. Like it's even crazier looking than a vegan diet because you're just eating like 2 foods, right? Of course people are going to watch those and maybe they even try it for like a day. The low carb diet was already like super hardcore and hardly anyone actually sticks with that. And the final thing I'll say, we're only 41 seconds through the video. Oh my Lord. There's a lot here. There's a lot of nuance, and him starting the video this way just makes me like, I'm scared. It's maybe not going to be a great video, but let's continue.
Always likely to fall from its high, but with everything that's going on in the world, veganism has just lost its appeal for a lot of people, including myself.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at the Google Trend forecast for the term vegan since 2004, it's down from its peak.
Yes, it is down from its peak, but like, again, what?
Nearly a quarter of New York City's vegan restaurants closed permanently between 2022 and 2024 alone, and other vegan bulwarks like Portland and LA are not far behind.
Okay, but Portland still has a ton of vegan restaurants, and we have a bunch of new ones, like just in the last year, so, And also, it's really hard to talk about that without mentioning, kind of a confounding variable there. A lot of restaurants have struggled. Some popular non-vegan restaurants here that people love have gone under. They've been around forever and now they're gone. But yes, certainly, I talked about in that video, people went all in on plant-based eating, on veganism, because they thought it was going to make a lot of money. And there were people like myself sitting back being excited that people were excited about veganism, but did I invest any money into these companies or anything like that? Fuck no. That's crazy. That's so risky. And am I surprised that a lot of these companies have gone under? Not at all. I've been vegan long enough and I've been on the internet long enough to know for a lot of people, it is a fad. And a lot of people who go vegan or plant-based, whatever, are very young. And it's just so likely that in a few years, they're going to be different. They're going to meet someone and want to get married, and that person isn't vegan. And I think the offerings from a lot of vegan places have not been terrific. Again, I live in Portland, Oregon. We've got a ton of vegan restaurants. We don't go to that many of them. And some of that is because we have children and they only like a few things. But a lot of the ones we've tried, we haven't gone back to because they just weren't that good and they were too expensive for what they were. We went to one of the few vegan places in Memphis, Tennessee when we were there visiting my family. I'm not going to say the place because I don't want to do that, but there was some good, but the location was not great. The setting was not great. There was a lot of stuff they didn't have. And yeah, even if I lived in Memphis, would I go back to eat there? No, which is a shame because they did some of their fried stuff, like the breading and the flavor of the breading was really good, but no, it was not worth sitting in that tiny place with the fans blasting. It was not a nice place to eat. Maybe if I got takeout, it would be better, but it's a lot of fried stuff and fried food in a takeout box for 30 plus minutes before it gets to you.
That was the first time I've ever used the term bulwark, and I don't like it. But right off the top, let's clarify some of the clickbait that we used for the title of this video. Obviously, veganism and plant-based foods are not completely dead as a category, let's just say. But in this video, I want to talk about how the social movement that surrounded this lifestyle has changed so dramatically in the last couple of years. We realized that all 3 of us on this channel have been some level of vegan or plant-based in the past.
Have we all dabbled with veganism? Is that what I'm hearing right now?
I didn't eat meat for probably 2 or 3 years.
And Matthew,
yeah.
you were fully vegan.
I was vegan, I think 3 or 4 years, and I'm still vegetarian.
I would say that
Right on.
Leah and I eat probably 60 to 80% vegan, depending on the week. It
Oh,
varies.
good job not showing your kid's face. I'm seeing it everywhere now. It's so great. Yeah, 60 to 80%. That's great, man. That's terrific.
Like if we're on the road, we eat more meat. And when we live by ourselves, like we're living with her parents right now, so we eat a lot more meat because they eat meat. You know, that's not good enough. That doesn't build a community. There's no community built around 80%ers. You know, there's no like cohesion amongst people who just try their best.
That's the thing about veganism that nobody really talks about, because like you don't really realize until you go vegan. It's like a socially isolating process. You're cut off from eating out with friends and family who are going to like a place that doesn't serve vegan food.
I know a lot of you are gonna say you're not cut off, you can still go, but it's not as fun if you go somewhere and you literally can't have anything except for lettuce. You know, maybe the bread, probably not. If you're talking about like a steakhouse type of place, you know. But also I think if people know you're vegan, they're less likely to invite you, right? Because they don't want you to feel awkward and they don't want to be around you when you're not eating. That's awkward. I understand what he's saying. You can't build a community around people who are just like, yeah, I eat less, you know, and it's not it's not going to be as big of a part of your life maybe than if you're like fully vegan. But I'm not sure if we really need that. I don't think we need every single person who cares about farmed animals to be vegan. I just think we need a large number of people to care about farmed animals enough to make changes. And by make changes, I mean trying to make plant-based products better so that people buy them, trying to make them more affordable so that people buy them, more available so that people buy them. Eating far fewer animals, I don't think is going to come down to people adopting veganism first. I wish that were the way it was, but I just don't believe that for a second. There's too much that goes into being vegan, you know, and saying no so often to foods and feeling socially isolated and even fighting with other people, right? Maybe your spouse or other family members, being made fun of. Most people just are not even going to give veganism a chance. I think it has to be made easy first, and you don't need everyone to care for that to happen. Thank goodness, right? We just need special, really smart, really dedicated people to make foods better, which they've been doing. You know, Beyond Meat is not a thing that could have existed back in 2010. Impossible Foods, right? Like we've seen so many positive changes in the food space, and that's what needs to happen. Once it's easier for people to care, they will care. You know, it doesn't sound nice. It's very cynical, but like, that's the way it is. And it's not easy for people to care about farmed animals right now. Oh, kids are home. Let's see how much longer I can record for.
I dabbled in the space. I have some insight here, but I will be honest that a big part of the reason why I made those videos, and I only made a couple of them, was because the term vegan and plant-based had a lot of momentum behind it on YouTube at the time. I made a what I eat in a day video and a grocery haul video, and mostly I think I was doing it because I was trying to get videos any way that I could, and it was justified in some way because it aligned with the message that I was promoting at the time, which was around sustainability.
Okay, I shouldn't say gross. That's really awesome that he's being honest about that. Like, I really appreciate that.
We asked the people on our Discord about this idea. We told them that we're making a video about veganism, and then literally within minutes, there was a full-on argument happening within the thread, which I think just perfectly encapsulates how impossible it is to have a rational conversation about this topic. And I really do think that it is this highly emotional, right and wrong, black and white kind of thinking that surrounded veganism that led to its failure.
Okay, but how has it failed, sir? You said it was clickbait, but you're still saying it's failed. Goodness. And, you know, it's something that you obviously think it's right. You know, he hasn't said that eating vegan is bad. You know, he's just talked about it from like a convenience perspective, right? He eats more meat because he's living with family members who eat meat. So it sounds like something that he thinks is right. Like, why would you make a video? What am I trying to say? Like, it's frustrating when you have outsiders, quote unquote, criticizing veganism seemingly just for views, just for content. Like, what is the point in saying veganism has failed if you're not trying to improve it? And there's just so much going on behind the scenes. One of my favorite websites is Vegeconomist, I think it's called. I think it's a kind of newer site, but they focus really heavily on the plant-based industry, and they talk a lot about things that you won't really see talked about anywhere else. That sounds like conspiracy theory, but it's stuff like that's a little more dry. I think most people don't care about, but it's like, hey, here are these university students who are working on a way to make plant fats more like animal fats, like in their mouthfeel, their texture, right? That's like, okay, who cares? But that is the shit that's really, really important. And that's the kind of stuff someone like him is not gonna know about. Maybe just because it's easier to just say, well, look at the Google Trends. Clearly veganism has failed. I guess my point is that to have any sort of concept of whether or not veganism in the long run is going to be successful, or really what we care about, if animal lives are going to be saved, if fewer animals are going to be eaten and tortured and killed in the future, we have to look at a lot more than just how many vegan YouTubers are there? How many views do their videos get? How many plant-based products are there? How many plant-based companies no longer exist? Like, there's so much more beyond that. There's likely revolutionary, boring processing methods being created right now that could revolutionize vegan meats, vegan cheeses.
Entire industries are being affected by the switch away from a purist vegan culture. A great example of this would be how 11 Madison Park, a 3 Michelin star restaurant in New York City that has been plant-based since 2021, has just started serving meat again.
Oh yeah, I was gonna make a video about that and then I got distracted. Yeah, 11 Madison Park is no longer vegan. It's not like, what was the other one where it was like, oh, we do regenerative farming now, and they ended up closing, I think. He just said he wants to be more inclusive, and I think that just means they're not making as much money as he would like. Let's be real. But yeah, it sounds like they're still doing mostly plant-based, and if you want to have the whole, because it's like the courses, right? You have your first course, your second, it's like 7 courses, and if you want it all to be vegan, it's all vegan, so like, I don't know, whatever.
This all or nothing, in or out kind of tribe mentality was just not a good vibe. Even Impossible Foods, one of the biggest players in the alternative meat industry, has admitted that this kind of marketing was the wrong way to create a sustainable market. The CEO said, it was against the cattle industry. It was against the slaughter cartel. If you ate meat, you were a Neanderthal.
Juicy Marbles has talked about that too. They've really openly criticized, without naming names, like, yeah, these companies really were anti most Americans, what I mean? Like, just like, ew, gross, instead of pumping up the product, And yeah, Juicy Marble said that they're not about that. They're just like, hey, here's some yummy meat that doesn't come from animals. And I would imagine that's probably the way to go. I mean, we've seen a couple times now that people don't respond well to like vegan on packaging, they like plant-based more. So yeah.
Every single meat company and startup on planet Earth rushing to produce their own vegan products just made it feel so forced to non-vegans, and it honestly produced some pretty questionable products.
Oh no. That's like the most realistic penis food I've ever seen. Like, that's impressive. But you know what? They responded, and they don't even sell those anymore. Have they come out with new sausages yet? I think they have.
And look, I'll admit, I ate a bunch of those Beyond Burgers, man, and every single time I shit my pants.
Is that a thing? What is that? Oh no, like, that's a you problem, sir. No, I'm joking. But like, I've never heard of that. I just don't like the taste. That aftertaste is just wrong. I can't do it, man.
Veganism became synonymous with queer people, environmentalists, femininity, and in some ways, the radical left as a whole. And this is just a whole other level of the vegan trend that, once again, has never happened with another food trend in the past. And that is the protests and the activism, especially centering around PETA. And honestly, there was already enough fuel on this fire, but this just took it to a whole other level. Whether it was comparing animal agriculture to the Holocaust, comparing animal agriculture to slavery, or just constantly making headlines with their public displays all around the world, PETA put a very radical spin on this already unconventional lifestyle.
PETA has done some really, really good things. And they make such a huge difference in getting companies, particularly, to drop certain products, to change their policies, cruelty-free makeup and whatnot. Like, they've done so much good work there. I used to always share their, like, small amounts of animal products in products, like, who cares, you know, bread or whatever, like, who cares, you know, they do some good stuff, but they really have the any publicity is good publicity sort of outlook. And I don't know, man, I don't think that's the way. Although him saying PETA is likely responsible for a move away from veganism.
Instead, this activism likely pushed us even further in the opposite direction.
Again, like, source? He provides no evidence for that. You can't just say that.
We talked about the carnivore diet in our protein video, and that video is in some ways sort of like a prequel to this one, because I really don't think that either of those trends would have happened if it wasn't for the vegan trend that preceded it.
That's a weird thing to say, considering the US has been obsessed with protein for decades now. Look at Atkins and low carb, the South Beach diet, whatever. That was another, like, low carb thing, and, like, high protein. What? I don't know where he gets that from. Protein has been a huge obsession for literally decades. People like the extremes. Again, just watching it is more entertaining, but also typically the extremists are the ones making the most extreme claims that people want to hear, right? People who are not feeling well, who are sick, who want to lose a lot of weight. And it's like, hey, just go vegan. Look at me. You know, look at my body. Look how thin I am. You can be like me. Just go vegan. It's so simple. Just go raw vegan. Just eat butter and steak. Instead of, no, it's calories in, calories out, sweetie. Vegan or not, carnivore or not.
I have ranged between 50 to like 95% plant-based, but I can't explain that in a video because we don't seem to understand nuance anymore.
When have we ever understood nuance? Like, look at the average I'm talking American, I think he might be Canadian, but similar sort of thing there. Like, look at the average reading level. If you are the average American, you don't understand nuance, and you never have. Yes, there's a lot of misinformation around. Yes, there's a lot of extreme, and you can access it so easily. But the idea that you, like, people back in the 50s weren't prone to misinformation and just believing, you know, absolutism, come on. Okay, that came across a lot meaner than I meant it to be. And also, I think there are, you know, I think a lot of people can understand nuance in certain circumstances, right? I think if it's an issue you've already set your mind against, right? If you've already set your mind against veganism or have no intention of changing your diet, you know, you probably don't want to hear more nuanced takes that make vegans seem more reasonable, right? You just want to hear vegans hate people. They like animals more than people. You don't want to hear things that might sway you or make it more difficult for you to admit that eating animals sucks. And as I talked about in the last video, I think, talking about vegan candy and like nutrition and understanding nutrition, we don't have time to hear the nuance about every single subject. A lot has been said about the low-fat movement here in the United States and elsewhere, starting, you know, several decades ago now, and that the message either got lost because it was just easier for people to hear, oh, low fat, okay, we just need to eat low fat. That's it, and then we'll be healthy. Or health officials didn't do a good enough job of explaining, you know, no, it's not just low fat, it's saturated fat, it's cholesterol that we're concerned with. We all lead busy lives and we don't have the time to hear about fucking backyard hens, you know? And at the end of the day, I don't think the issue with Americans and other people being so resistant to veganism even comes down to nuance, because the basic argument for veganism that virtually everyone can get behind, which is that we want to see a reduction in suffering. A reduction in suffering is good. Animals clearly suffer. Farmed animals clearly suffer tremendously. We have other foods we can eat. We should eat other foods. Virtually every American, every person would agree with that, unless they think we have to eat animals for health. There's really no nuance, and there doesn't really need to be, you know, unless, again, you want to talk about backyard chickens, but that's not even a thing for most people. So I think it all goes back to convenience. Like, people just do not care enough about farmed animals to make the commitment to not harming them. We need plant-based alternatives to be available, affordable, delicious, taste and texture similar, if not better, than meats and cheeses etc.
You're seeing is like vegan gets owned videos on one side and then my vegan grocery haul videos on the other side. You're missing the vast majority of the people on earth in the middle who just don't give a shit and are probably just eating somewhere in between there. But there is no merch for those people. There's no call to action for those people.
Okay, to be clear though, the vast majority of people are not eating in between there. I mean, I'm not even sure what he means by that. Like, the vast majority of people are eating a lot of animal products, like every single meal, and a lot of calories. Like the middle ground, or the average American, is doing really poor when it comes to the ethics of the diet, the health of their diet. So I'm not really sure what the argument is there, other than like, yeah, most people are not carnivore, most people are not vegan. Yeah, but most people don't even eat like a normal healthy diet. Most people don't eat a moderate amount of healthy plants, which I guess would be a point in his favor. You know, he's kind of making we need to stop focusing on the all or nothing, which I absolutely agree with, and focusing on veganism and instead focus on reducing. Getting Americans to reduce their animal product consumption even by 10, 20% could save so many animals.
Retention and microtrends are becoming baked into our real life decision making, and it's just making everything so much harder to interpret. That's why it's so easy for scammers and influencers to sell you garbage online, because it's harder than ever to know what the hell is real and what isn't.
I know I'm being really critical. I overall really like him. He seems like a cool dude. And the other two people who work on this channel, I guess they all work on these videos together. Yeah, he obviously cares. He tries to eat like mostly plant-based, or at least half plant-based. That's awesome. But I don't like the whole misinformation is so bad and everything's so much harder for people now because we have these extremes and they're everywhere and it's influencing our decisions. And like, where's the evidence? He hasn't presented like hardly any evidence for this claim, and it's been just throughout the video. I also don't appreciate constantly comparing, possibly even equating veganism with carnivoreism, right? The carnivore diet. The carnivore diet is not a healthy diet, period. There is no health institution, there is no government body on this planet that promotes the carnivore diet. There are several health institutions that say, yes, a vegan diet, when properly planned, can be healthy. In my Good Vegan News video for 2024, I talked about, oh God, I want to say Austria and maybe one or two other countries, their current healthy diet recommendations, mostly plants. And veganism specifically, as he said, is not a diet. It is a philosophy. It encompasses more than just food. It encompasses all forms of animal exploitation. Eating a carnivore diet is just a diet. I mean, some act as though, yeah, it's more like, it's definitely an identity thing, and it's definitely, you know, an anti-vegan thing for some people. Maybe I'm just the sensitive little snowflake, but I can't help being offended by someone constantly comparing one of the most selfish ways of eating, like really selfish and bad for the planet, bad for animals, to veganism, to a group of people who are the opposite of that. We're trying to make things better, you know, like, stop, please.
And probably the biggest aspect of this is exhaustion. It is truly a luxury to be able to eat plant-based. It takes time and effort and money to make these kinds of specific choices about what we eat in a day, and the world is on fire. Like, it's really not a chill time to be alive.
Oh God,
and so for
I just really despise that. The world overall is still better. Yes, there are some scary things going on. Trump scares me just as a human being. He is so volatile. Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine. Anyway, there are a whole lot of evidence-based takes on this sort of sentiment. People act differently when they believe there is no point. If we're already screwed, then what's the point in trying? Far from making us more effective in driving change, it robs us of any motivation to do so. I recognize this from my own dark period when I nearly walked away from the field entirely. I can assure you that after reframing how I saw the world, I have had a much, much bigger impact on changing things. When it comes down to it, doomsday attitudes are often no better than denial. Most climate scientists I know have children. They spend every day studying and thinking about climate change. Yet they're obviously not resigned to the idea that we will face a climate apocalypse in the next century. They think there is still time to ensure a livable future for our children. The climate scientists know change is possible because they've seen it happen. Against the odds, they've driven much of it. That is from the wonderful book, Not the End of the World, How We Can Be the First Generation to Build a Sustainable Planet by Hannah Ritchie of Our World in Data. I believe she's an editor, deputy editor, and lead researcher at Our World in Data. Obviously, the focus here is on environmentalism, climate change, but there's a lot of talk of the harms of, doomsdayism, the world is on fire kind of bullshit. Many other ways our world has improved so much, pollution, mortality rates of mothers and children, life expectancy, hunger, malnutrition, access to basic resources, clean water, energy, sanitation, education, extreme poverty. As Max Roser, not sure how you say his name actually, says, he's the founder of Our World in Data, the world is awful, the world is much better, the world can be much better. We need to hold all of these thoughts in our heads at one time. They're all true. If we want more people to dedicate their energy and money to making the world a better place, then we should make it much more widely known that it is possible to make the world a better place.
I don't think that veganism's decline has anything to do with people's lack of empathy for animals or our lack of interest in preserving the people and the planet that we live on, but rather a contextual response to the stresses that we feel nowadays. And until we fix that system, nothing else is going to change.
Yes and no. And first, of course, the guy who stopped being vegan is going to say that, he doesn't want to admit to himself that maybe he just doesn't care enough. People like this tend to present veganism as young people who don't have responsibilities and they come from money, or at least some amount of money, so they can spend all of this time and money on veganism. There are lots of people like me who don't make a lot of money, who have children. There are people with just regular ass jobs and they're vegan. Why? Because they care. Because they care more than he does. He talked about nuance. Talk about lack of nuance. I think we can do both. We can recognize that, yes, it's hard to be vegan and it's silly to expect a huge number of people to do it at this point. But we can also recognize that the people who do it largely do it because they care more. A lot of them are making sacrifices because they care more. And change the system, I'm not even sure what that means. Is that some anti-capitalism thing? I don't know. It sounds to me more like, it's institutional change and not individual change. I don't agree with that. I think the two go hand in hand. I don't think people are going to push for institutional change unless they've made at least some amount of individual change. And without the products in place, people are not going to push for institutional change. People don't want to give up meat. We have to get to the point where they don't have to, where they can be vegan and not give up meat by really good vegan meats is what I'm saying. Maybe lab grown, maybe. I don't know how I feel about that video. I think there was a lot said that was not supported by any sort of evidence. And again, the ending, just don't tell people the world is on fire. I hate it. I hate it so much. Literally, people are not having children because they think the world is so bad they don't want to bring a child into the world. And these are the people who are conscientious enough to care about that sort of thing, right? These are the people we want having children. These are the people who are going to be good parents. Anyway, not my favorite video. And again, I hate the title, but wonderful to hear that he eats mostly plant-based. That's awesome. Absolutely. I think we do want people who are not vegan to support the cause, to at the very least be anti-factory farming. I think that's a good place to start. And we have seen a lot of people jump on board with that. Now, I say jump on board, people still eat factory farmed meat and eggs and whatnot, even if they say they don't. But hey, it's a start. And, we need the annoying vegans. We need activists pointing out how awful these situations are. We need these undercover investigations. I guess that's why these videos kind of frustrate me, is there's never any focus on the people doing the real work. Again, the researchers who are trying to make vegan foods better, the activists who are putting their lives at risk, going undercover to showcase how horribly these animals are treated in a video called Why Veganism Failed. It just seems, I don't know. So the point is, I didn't like it. I didn't didn't like this video, but I would love to know your thoughts. I would love to know if you've watched any of his other videos. I guess he has a whole series of, you know, why minimalism failed and why, there's one other thing, zero waste, I think, why zero waste failed. All right, I gotta go say hi to the kids. They're back from school. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, like and subscribe. Thank you so much to all my members here on YouTube and my patrons at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. I do post 2 exclusive videos a month for tier 2 members and patrons. God, I've been recording for an hour. Jeez, his video was not long. Oh my God, this is gonna be a beast to edit. No. Yeah, I post 2 exclusive videos for tier 2 members and patrons. I do a vlog and I also do a controversial topic, just, you know, whatever I want to talk about that's not related to veganism, environmentalism, whatever. Yeah, that's it for me. New video soon. Stomp, 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 stomp.